In today's episode of Austin's Hot Takes, we're talking to Brendan Gardner, the trailblazing leader behind Thrive Causemetics.
I think that there is a huge disconnect in D2C from a brand perspective of really listening to customer feedback. There's so much data out there, but does that data internally get back to product teams that are actually going to continuously make better products? Can you iterate on it? Can you make a better product for consumers?
Tune in for a decade of DTC wisdom from an industry leader.
Okay. All right. Today, we've got Brendan, who I've gotten to know over a long time here in person in Los Angeles, where he's based. And actually, we linked up in Las Vegas once, too. But Brendan is at Thrive Causemetics. So, Brendan, maybe you could just talk a little bit, before we get into the hot take, which we'll get into quickly, just talk a little bit about Thrive and kind of what you're up to.
Yeah. Thrive. We started 11 years ago. D2C beauty brand, started on Shopify. And it's just been kind of a roller coaster and a rocket ship all at once for the last decade of building this D2C beauty brand. What we're up to recently, we expanded our product lines big time last year. We're looking at additional distribution this year, but still solely focused on D2C. That's where we've kind of stayed in hit, and it's something that a lot of beauty brands have gone retail and other things, and we'll get there eventually. But overall, we're charging forward with what we've been doing and do well, D2C.
Yeah, obviously hugely successful. All right, so let's get your hot take. What are people not getting right now?
I think that there is a huge disconnect in D2C from a brand perspective of really listening to customer feedback. And so with someone like us that has high volumes, we get tons of tickets in, right? We get tons of customer feedback, surveys, all the other data. There's so much data out there, but does that data internally get back to product teams that are actually going to continuously make better products? Can you iterate on it? Can you make a better product for consumers? I think there's a disconnect in the data getting all the way downstream to the people that aren't necessarily monitoring those channels, and then closing that feedback loop quickly.
Yeah. So my summary of that is like, you've got people on the front end that are talking to customers, and then you have all the way down to engineers or people like way down funnel that are deep in the weeds. And you feel like there's a disconnect between those people, right? Not everyone is understanding of like what needs to change in order to have a better product. Is that the end to operate better, right? That's what you're saying.
I mean, I think people are focused on their silos of work that they have to get done in the organization, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes they don't either have time or they don't think to reach out to, potentially the people that are seeing the customer requests come in, or the growth marketers that are seeing the ads with the comments, and say like, what are people saying? And what did that latest eyeliner release in our case, right? Did that resonate with customers? And are we getting any feedback back? And is there anything we should be doing there? Because the focus is solely on the stay in your silo, not stay in your lane necessarily, but there's so much work to do in just developing products and marketing products and getting it to an actual launch, that there isn't always room to actually hear what's happening after it's been released and we see the kind of the results coming in.
Has that been harder as Thrive's gotten so big now? Was it easier early on? And do you feel like that's the challenge as you get bigger to keep that feedback loop going? Is that
sure?
Yeah.
Sure. I think before it lived with individual leaders, right? Before teams got built. And so, one leader might know everything that's in the pipeline, everything that was just released, and be really have full knowledge of what that product was. But now it can be distributed between a pretty large team. And so who's the owner of that? Who's the ongoing owner of a product? Who are the teams that came up with the marketing for it? It's many team members on an individual team. And so that communication of bringing people together to understand what's going on there has been more difficult as we've grown and scaled and have a much larger product portfolio.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's the challenge of success, right? It's not, more with that success comes a harder hill to climb in terms of keeping the feedback loop going, right? You just have more stakeholders, more people, things get lost in translation. How do you think you solve it? What's your key there?
What we really push is over communication, right? We got to distill the information down and then be proactive and getting it to the teams. And so far it's been really understanding ownership. So we'll do a lot of kind of racy type things, right? So identify who's really responsible in owning this, and then making sure we are I guess there's no way to like over communicate. It's just communicating over and over and over again. And so we try to instill that in the team internally. We also, being a physical product company, right, we've got our team members in the office with us. And so really building up those relationships between teams has been huge for us of making sure that we can work together well from a team perspective, not just an individual person.
Yeah. And also you're in office, if I'm correct, right? Is that part of the strategy of being in office too? Is like it encourages that a little bit, or?
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a different level of ownership and also understanding of the physical products. When we can walk into a conference room, we have our whole product line displayed, and you can go pick it up and say, we're talking about this mascara today. We're talking about this piece of skin, like this skincare product today. And you can, swipe it on your hand. You can look at it as you're talking about, are we resonating with consumers as we like try to look at and talk to this thing? There's just a different feeling of that rather than being on a video call. I think that, remote works for a number of companies, but for a physical product company, it's difficult to get everyone going in the same direction from a vision perspective if you're not working in person holding the product.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think hardware companies work that way, car companies, right? So your point is kind of your hot take is if you're not in office, if you're not communicating a lot, and I'm sure there's some people would say we found a way to communicate effectively virtually. I'm sure there are people out there that'll hear this and be like, well, we have a system to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Your point is that when you're in office, it's like there's that real tangible, touch the product, feel the product thing that you can never do. You can't do that virtually, right?
Either you can never, or the timeline to do that, the added steps in order to make those connections makes it so there's so much more friction.
Right.
And getting to making, at the end of the day, we want to focus on making great products that our customers love, iterating those products if we need to. And like anything that slows down that feedback loop for that process makes it so it's harder for us to go do that. And we think about larger brands than us, right? The big conglomerates in the beauty industry. And what we have as an advantage being D2C is that we can move a bit faster than what they can. And so anything gets in the way of that feedback loop is not great for our business.
Which, if any of your customers are listening, I'm sure they would love to hear that you care and that you're trying to make the product better all the time and as fast as you can. So for anyone who, any Thrive customers, you're in good hands, clearly. Well, cool. Thanks a lot, Brendan. Appreciate it. We keep it short here on Hot Takes. So have a great day.
Thanks, Austin.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want more marketing hot takes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to avoid missing any future videos.